First, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into one of those top stories with our Cali Lichter. As the year comes to a close, we're learning about a drop in crime rates in the city of Grand Rapids, and the chief is telling us the department is continuing to see declining rates as it has in years past. Cali here now on the couch with me to talk a little bit about this. Cali, you spoke with Chief Winstrom about this topic. Your story aired at 5 and 6 o'clock, but I wanted to just break down some of the information that you were able to gather. So when we say crime rates dropping, what sorts of crimes are we talking about?
So we're talking about, car thefts, robberies, homicides, violent crimes. Like pretty much every single crime has dropped in the city of Grand Rapids, or at least has, stayed at some normal levels that you would expect for a city of Grand Rapids size. And of course, Chief Eric Winstrom says there is a lot more to be done. He wishes those numbers were zero.
Right.
But for now, he says we're moving in the right positive direction.
At least to be declining is better than to be increasing,
Correct.
Of course. And he talked with you, reading through your story today, he's really honing in on the fact that they've got more staff in the department as potentially why this could be happening, just because, there's more hands to handle what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, staffing, having a fully staffed or, maximum staffed police department is something that every chief wants to see, and that allows, more officers to be out on the roads patrolling, allows them to, we talked about faster response times. That is a big one. Instead of someone, he used, for example, a pickpocketing crime. It's one of those, lower level crimes, still, very important and traumatizing to a victim, but, pickpocketing. Sometimes, they could be waiting for 45 minutes for an officer to show up, and they could say, oh, my wallet is long gone, I'm just going to leave, and then they won't pick up from the officer's call. So, just more people to dedicate to getting to these victims faster, getting to a crime scene faster. It also helps detectives solve cases faster because there's someone on the scene,
talking more immediately.
Correct. Yeah. Talking to victims. Maybe the suspect is still in the area, getting information on who could be a suspect in a certain crime, just helps all around to make that workflow easier for everyone in the department.
Yeah, and we have a quick bite from the chief on exactly that. Let's take a listen.
They're not playing catch up. They're in real time. They're working these cases. They're doing a good job. And that makes it that much more likely that we're going to close those cases, that we're going to make arrests in those cases.
And of course, as you mentioned, whether it's pickpocketing or we're talking about the severity of a crime like homicide, it's important to, whomever the victim may be in that case, as well as, the officers. But homicide's one, of course, that we're always keeping a close eye on. And you dug into as well where we are as far as, solve rates at this point as we wrap up the year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he says there have been 10 homicides in the city so far this year, and that there are 4 that still have not been cleared, which means, suspect in custody, charges pressed. So that's, for a city of this size, that's pretty good. He talked about when he was with the Chicago Police Department, and cities, the size of Chicago, they could have, a 30% clearance rate. So that means, every 7 out of 10 suspects, perpetrators of homicide could just be, walking free on the streets.
Right.
That's, they want to have that clearance rate as high as possible. Because he says that's, one less person on the street who is willing to take someone else's life.
Right. Of course, we'd love that to be 100, but the higher that we can have that. And as you were mentioning, the more staff there is, the more police officers there are to handle every level of crime, the more resources there are to then handle these most serious crimes. Something you also spoke with the chief about this community officer program. That's something that he'd kind of like to allocate some more resources to. What are we talking about there, and why is that a goal?
It's a goal, definitely having more officers out there in the community, more resources there. Just having every single position filled.
Yeah.
Having officers dedicated to community. He also talked about, having spots. There are spots in the department that are filled by civilians. Having those programs more staffed. He said, focusing more on these programs that have kind of been put on the wayside over the past couple of years. Now that they are fully staffed and they have more resources able to dedicate to those programs now.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything I'm missing? Anything else that you guys chatted about to make note of?
Yeah, so something that was really interesting. I know a lot of people are familiar with the Kia Boys phenomenon and car thefts that especially were happening in the earlier half of the 2020s, auto thefts is something that is really, really big for law enforcement.
Yeah.
And so I believe this year Winstrom said they've only received around 400 auto theft reports, which is down from 1,000 in 2020.
Wow.
So it's less.
I mean, it's still a lot, but it's a lot less.
Again, he
which
says
is good.
he wishes that number was 0, but it is a lot less now. And he says, unfortunately, a lot of the offenders of these car thefts are kids, are teenagers, kids as young as 12. And he says that community involvement, he is very big on community involvement,
Yes.
showing support for the youth in the city. He says due to that community involvement, also collaboration with the juvenile courts, Kent County Prosecutor's Office, just some of those things have helped, reduce the car thefts because, it's less kids turning to crimes that sometimes can be violent. I mean, carjacking is a very violent crime sometimes.
And as we hear him say this, I can picture him saying it in my head several times. He's always talking about how parents and adults in the community also play such a vital role in making sure that kids are entertained and educated and doing things that don't involve crime. That's something that he really puts the onus not only on his department, but on the rest of the folks in our community to keep kids out of that kind of trouble is something that he brings up often. Okay, well, we appreciate your report today. Hopefully we can, up that solve rate for the homicide factor, before the end of the year. I'm sure that's a goal that they have. And hopefully we can keep these numbers to trickling down in years to come. So, Cali, thanks so much.